If an LLM could do anything perfectly to make your life easier, what would that be?
Oh, that's a deep question. That's too deep for a podcast.
Is the AI, does it have the creativity of a human or not? Or is it just mimicking things that it's already seen?
Aren't we just the kind of sum of the parts of all of our influences?
I think my expectations have very quickly gotten absurd. There's no other domain where I've seen such continual progress every week, like literally every week for the past 2 years.
And it seems to be accelerating. I mean, it's even the rate of progress is accelerating itself.
If things continue at this pace, what's our role in the future?
I'm on the view that train's left the station. You better be on the train. Alan, you were one of the first people I knew who kind of discovered LLMs early days. I think it must have been GPT-3. You've been talking about it for a long time. What was the first time you saw something where you had that "this is magic" moment?
I think it was probably when I was coding, and I had my editor open, and anybody who's coded for a while is familiar with autocomplete and all the subtle magic that can happen in your editor. But it occurred to me that these completions that I was getting via the LLM were more than just basic autocomplete. You could basically put in a comment and say, now write me a for loop that iterates this many times and console logs. And no sort of autocomplete could ever do that. So that's when I knew that this was something much, much bigger. And programming is really one of the best things that LLMs are good at because it's such a structured syntax. And so I kind of feel like LLMs were better known to programmers early on than to the general public, because while they weren't very good at answering generalized questions, they were super good at answering questions in a domain where the syntax was very well defined. There was a structured grammar, and that's where they really, really excelled. And I think they've grown to the point now where you can use them for almost anything. But in those very early days, the only people I knew that were really using LLMs were coders.
I always wondered whether that was kind of cyclical. So you've got the people that are creating the LLMs and transformers technology and all that stuff are Python developers, typically. So it kind of came as no surprise to me that the first series of products that came out the back of it were basically Python coding co-pilots. I always thought it was because the people building the LLMs Python was their language, coding was their language.
Right. I think there's a bit of recursion in that respect. And I think you can take that theme pretty far when you think about what are the limits of the creativity, because people like to talk about, is the AI, does it have the creativity of a human or not, or is it just mimicking things that it's already seen? And when you look at the things that it's really, really good at, naturally it's really good at generating completions for things for which there's a lot of data on the internet. And so famously, in the early days, you would ask an LLM to create a picture of a person's hand, and this became sort of a meme, and it couldn't really do it. It would have like 7 fingers, it would have 8 fingers, it would have 2 fingernails on 1 finger. And the reason was there wasn't just that many images of hands available on the internet, whereas text, there was, tons and tons of it. And so they've since solved that. But I still feel like one of the limitations of LLMs is it's sort of backwards looking. It's easy to anthropomorphize it and say it's behaving like a human. There's these emergent qualities to it. But in the end, in my experience, the things that it's really, really good at are the things for which there's amazing examples out there on the web. And so if you're going to go back to coding, if you're using a library that's very, very well known, if you're using let's say you're using Material UI, there's tons of examples of that. It's called Stack Overflow. Yeah. The lawyers will work that out, like who's got the trademarks to that stuff. But it will create a very compelling app using Material UI. Is it going to create the next version of Material UI? Like, what comes after that? Is it just backwards looking, or do you think it's capable? And I'll pass back to you. Do you think it's capable of creating the next version that's going to iterate on top of what we already have, or is it always going to be feeding off of what it's seen in the past?
I mean, isn't that where creativity comes from anyway? I mean, as humans. So what you're looking for is a kind of a human level of creativity. But don't we get that? It's just that, aren't we just the kind of sum of the parts of all of our influences? I mean, it's the same with music, right? You can go back in time with music and you can clearly see a pattern through classical music and into jazz and early rock and roll and into today. You can kind of see there was a series of influences. A lot of classical musicians influenced the jazz guys influenced the rock and roll guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Aren't we always backward looking in a way in that sense?
And so does that just mean that, to use a sort of technical word, the idea of temperature with an LLM, which is don't just give me the most
Likely.
probable, the most likely response. You can set the temperature, you can turn the temperature up and say, introduce a little bit of variability into this, some randomness. I guess if we were to look at human creativity from that lens, maybe that's all we are as well. There's a bit of, probabilistic next word expectation with some degree of randomness, which takes us from, Baroque to classical or to the next step.
And I guess the difference with the humans would be that as a machine, you could test out 1,000 variants of varying degrees of randomness. And actually, the randomness bit is something I think humans are not very good at as well. I think it's hard to get a thought out of your mind. It's once you've come up with that next token in your brain, it's actually hard to go backwards and come up with something totally different. Humans are not very good at that.
Especially when you've been positively rewarded for that. And you see this with Instagrammers who come out with a video after video after video, and then they'll do one that gets big numbers. And then every single video they come out with after that is some sort of variation on that because they've got addicted to the likes or to the praise. And maybe you're right, maybe LLMs are less susceptible to that sort of bias.
But would that be is that what you're looking for in terms of kind of the next moment that comes along where you go, this is just magic? Are you looking for, is it a creative spark you think that you're looking for there?
Yeah, I think my expectations have very quickly gotten absurd based on how quickly LLMs have developed. When it first came out, I was like, okay, this is a better autocomplete. And then it got to the point where you could give ChatGPT like a whole page of code and say, find the bug. And that was really impressive. And now it's gotten to the point where you can have an agent running inside of your code editor and just give it a task and don't tell it which files to look at. And it just works it out. It recurses. So this is all in the space of 2 years, which is just mind-blowing. Like I've never seen any sort of progress like this in any sort of domain. And so I'm starting to think, okay, if things continue at this pace, what's our role in the future? If we have some sort of job, and I'm obviously not alone in thinking about this. This is all of the newspapers. It's a hot topic. Like what's going to happen to jobs that are going to be automated via the LLMs? But I'm curious to see what you think. I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious to see what you think about.
I think, that. So the way I see it, and then I'll answer the question about what I think about it. I think it's kind of splits into two. There's a classic answer. The classical answer would be the humans will be doing more interesting work, and then you have the dystopian answer, which is the humans aren't going to be doing anything. And I quite like the sound of that one, if I'm perfectly honest. Or we do what we choose to do. I think actually both are possible. But I think the transition from now to whatever that future state is going to be, I think it's potentially going to be quite horrific, actually. I don't think it's going to be a very enjoyable journey. That's my hunch. Because like all technology kind of revolutions or any industrial revolution, there's a period of pain that you have to go through before it's fully adopted. It's a bit like self-driving cars. Until every car on the road is a self-driving car, there's going to be a lot of accidents. And that's probably something at some point we're going to go through, I suspect. Mm-hmm. And I kind of see AI the same. So I think there's going to be a lot of chaos potentially before it crystallizes on the outcome. I think in the next 10 years, it'll be much more centered around, or from now to over the next 10 years, much more centered around AI doing the heavy lifting, humans doing better quality work, more interesting work. I do believe that. I think in 25 to 50 years' time, I think we're aiming towards a society where the humans don't really have to do very much at all. I can see a completely different economy running where, I mean, the machines can make the food, they can make the water, they can make the stuff that we want to consume. We don't have to be doing that.
Right. As long as we're the ones holding the electrical cord, right? And we can pull it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's some scary thoughts around that, but I suppose personally, I have quite a positive view on that.
Okay.
I'm not worried about the robots taking over. I may regret saying, I may look back on that and saying how wrong I was, but I don't see the robots taking over.
Okay. Where do you stand on the topic of regulation from a perspective of we need to slow this down because we don't know where it's going?
Yeah.
Versus let's just accelerate because if we don't do it, China's going to do it. And they're going to do it without any sort of guardrails.
I'm on the view that train's left the station. You better be on the train. That's my view. And partly because of the point you made earlier about the speed of evolution of this stuff. By the time the regulations are drafted, it's going to be so late, it's ridiculous. So I think that the train's moving. If you're not on the train, catch up and jump on right now. And I think I'm not even thinking... Well, I think we need to be responsible. There's a difference between being responsible, I guess. So we need some internal governance around how we do things, and there are some moral arguments and some internal governance, your own corporate business governance, so that you can show the potential consumers of this technology that you've built it the right way and you've done good things. But I think in terms of the raw technological advancement, as you say, if we're not doing it, you can bet China is, and other countries are. We're at real risk of getting left behind.
Okay. What surprises you the most about this space? For me personally, it's this sort of retrofuturism of like physical robots. I thought that was a bit of a meme, but people are really attacking that problem, Tesla in particular, and I did not see that coming. I thought it would be mostly software. But what about you? Anything surprising in the developments?
I think that one surprised me, but actually it makes perfect sense. As humans, we feel more normal interacting with a human-like form, and so you can kind of see that's the user interface that's evolving. And I think that, I mean, some of the quality of those, the realism now of some of those things is kind of scary. I think it might step back a little bit from hyper-realism. I think I'd want to know I'm interacting with a machine. I don't want to ever be at a point where, am I talking to a machine or a human? So I kind of want a distinction, a physical distinction. But I think the rough form of having eyes and a head and a body and legs and arms makes sense to me as a user interface.
Right. Have you seen that video that Apple put out? They're doing some testing. They're introducing AI into like household objects. And so they have this lamp which will telescope and it will rotate and it will move according to your hand gestures. So if you're reading a newspaper and the sun has gone down a little bit and you want the lamp to put some light, a little bit further to the right, you can just gesture with your hand to the right. And so they were showing that it has a split screen, the strictly AI version, which does things in an optimal movement. It goes directly to the target. So it obeys exactly what you want, super quick, versus this kind of anthropomorphized version where you tell it, move to the right, the lamp looks at you, nods, and then goes to the right. And there's a visceral feeling when you watch it. Like, the one on the right is not efficient, but I feel so much more comfortable sharing my living space with that.
It's so Apple, right?
Yeah.
But and I'm on that page. I think I'd buy the Apple lamp, I think, because there's a cuteness to it as well. And it's a more valuable interaction than just some object that's doing what it's told.
I kind of wonder if that's going to be a phase as well. Do you remember in the early versions of iOS, they had this thing called, I think it was called skeuomorphism. Everybody seemed to, learn that word at the same time.
Well, that was Steve Jobs' kind of favorite thing. I think that he drove that very much.
Did he?
So, yeah.
Okay. So like I'm trying to think of a specific example.
The contacts was like a Rolodex.
Right. It had to look like the physical thing, and it had like beveled edges. And it
leather binding, and
And then was it Johnny Ives that came along and said, no, we're going completely flat?
Only after he died. After
he had
Jobs
to wait
died.
him out. He waited him out.
And he won.
And there's like, now we're going flat.
Yeah, exactly.
He waited 6 months.
Yeah.
All right. And then they went flat. So do you sort of feel like we're going to go through that transitionary period where for maybe 3, 6, 12 months, we need to feel like we're interacting with something that's got a human touch to it. And then once we're past that, it's like, okay, let's just accept the fact that we're working with machines and let's get down to business. Flat icons, immediate movements to the thing that we want.
It's a really good question, actually. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think as you phrase it like that, and I think particularly with the Apple skeuomorphic example, I think I can totally see that happening, where people get to a point and say, it's silly, I know it's a machine. Just do the job quickly.
Yeah,
cheaply.
Don't pretend to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to go through that transition, as you say, as a way of adapting to a new interaction mode.
Are you seeing a lot of people in your circles using AI in interesting ways, or is it mostly like programmers and technical people?
Well, I mean, I think what's the most interesting way that I've seen? It tends to be as a kind of a whether it's coding or generic writing, I'm seeing it still being used very much as a kind of a co-pilot. That kind of use case is the one that I'm seeing most of my circle adopt. I think the deep research tool that OpenAI has, I subscribe to it, and I'm finding that really useful, and I'm using that more like an assistant that has access to all the tools I have, but has more time than me, and something I can within a couple of paragraphs I can describe a research project and have it go off and do that, and it does that extremely well. And I know a couple of friends of mine that are doing similar with it, and the quality of that is of course going to improve. I guess it comes back to your point about, is it creative enough to really do something, to really evolve into the super interesting use cases yet? Or is it just a super autocomplete in the terms of saving you time? I'll type that for you.
But you still need to be there to say, yes, good job, robot, I accept.
Yeah, and to steer it. I think, and what I found is with, for example, the deep research one, it'll ask you questions at the beginning, so you kind of get out. It seems it's very good at working out the kinds of things it needs to know before it starts, and it gets that all out of you up front. And I'm finding the results of that much better as they come back. But I think I'm also seeing, in the same way, I'm seeing a move away from real-time output. It's not so necessary. I think we got very used to using Google and it taking 200 milliseconds to return some search results to you. And I think a lot of people felt that way in the early days of ChatGPT. It felt like a great tool because it was really fast. You'd type your question and you'd see it writing really super quickly, faster than you could read it. And deep research doesn't do that. Deep research says thinking. Sometimes for 10, 15 minutes, it goes off and then comes back with an answer. And I think that kind of asynchronous use case is really interesting because, quality takes time, whether you're human or a machine. And I have no problem with something that takes half an hour to work but comes back with something really good. So I think we will see more and more use cases which are asynchronous.
You feel like you're getting, I know it's like $200 a month, isn't it?
Yeah.
You feel like you're getting your money's worth of that?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think it paid for itself within an hour.
How much would you pay per month to prevent them from taking it away from you?
We might have to edit this in case OpenAI see it. They've got my credit card. I mean, I think probably £1,500, £2,000 a month, I would say. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, what could I hire a basic researcher, someone, academic out of university, someone who knows how to learn, knows how to research, may not know a topic. And then I've got to hire them, pay them a salary, give them great access to the web. And actually, one of the things that deep research does really well is, I'm not quite sure how they do it. It gets excellent quality results from the web, better than I can get, better than my student that I'd hire as an alternative, or ex-student as an alternative. So
when you say you don't know how it gets it, meaning it's getting through like the firewalls, like the robot blockers?
No, I mean, and then it will be interesting to see who starts blocking it. And do you know if Stack Overflow have blocked it in robots.txt?
I think it's with the lawyers right now.
Right. Okay.
I mean, first of all, they're training on the data for free.
Yeah.
And second, server costs.
Right.
Like, so if it's just a bunch of organic traffic, fine. You can probably predict that. But if everybody starts hammering it with the LLMs, right? Like agents going, hey, go survey the past 5 years of Stack Overflow data, and it's just something hitting it recursively. That's Stack Overflow footing the bill for your research. And now you're paying $200 a month for the thing, but like, what is it costing Stack Overflow? So I think we're going to see this play out in courts.
Yeah, I mean, there's some commercial problems that are there. I mean, I hadn't really thought about that one. You're absolutely right. Stack Overflow servers must be getting hammered. But when I mentioned the quality of results that it gets from search as being better than mine, I think it's filtering them for me, I guess. So all I see is what it has already worked out as the information I'm really looking for. And of course, there's no ads and all of that nonsense in there. So it exceeded, if I think $200 a month, I have the best search tool, in my opinion, right now, subject to the lawyers shutting it all down. Yeah. And coupled to a very, very intelligent student or army of students in reality to go away and do research. I mean, it's a couple of grand a month cheap, isn't it? What would you pay?
Yeah, it's crazy. I haven't used the open research yet. My experience with recursion right now is it tends to go off the rails. Maybe it would change my mind if I tried the $200 a month version of it. But people since the early days have been looking at LLMs again in a kind of rear-looking fashion to replace tasks like, I want to go on a trip to Spain, find me the best places to go, find me the best places to stay, find me airfare, which to me seems like one of the most boring things you could do with an LLM. If an LLM could do anything perfectly to make your life easier, what would that be?
Oh, that's a deep question. That's too deep for a podcast. What could the LLM take away? I mean, the natural way, I suppose, to frame the answer to that question is to think about, well, what do I do today that I don't like doing?
Right.
And this comes back to the get rid of the menial tasks. So as a human, I'm just left doing the things that I enjoy doing. And I mean, I'm sure we've all got a long list of that sort of stuff, but it's basic stuff from pulling weeds out of the lawn to, cooking if I'm busy, or writing code, or putting together a slide deck, or I find the bit that I enjoy doing, I suppose, it tends to be the creative things that it can't do very well right now. So what I would want to do is I'll provide the creative spark, and I'll have an idea, and that bit will come from me. And what I probably then want an AI to do is to refine that, document it, put it into whatever form it is I need to send it to someone else, or put it in code or whatever. I mean, I think this is going to come up I think Sam Altman said it's coming, he said, towards the end of this year, where you will be able to describe a mobile app and it'll be built for you on iOS and Android. And
yeah, you can actually do that now on Replit. Actually, you can describe it. They have like a prompt. You say what you want, and now Grok 3 actually is doing it too. You can just, and I think this is working with Replit as well, where you describe an app. You either press refine prompt and the AI will help you flesh out the prompt a bit, or create, and it will create it and then deploy it to Replit, and then it'll be live. And I think they integrate with iOS and Android as well. So all of a sudden, overnight, all of these non-programmers can now speak English and create apps on the app stores.
And the apps can only get better, I think, when that happens. I mean, that to me is really, actually, that's really exciting that you can go. I think it opens up two things. One, non-developers being able to create apps, which I think will lead to much more interesting apps being designed and created. I think the second thing is this concept of like just-in-time applications. Yeah. Is that what they're called? That's a really interesting concept to me. And that's something I'd love to see. So I suppose the answer to the question is that those are the kinds of things, it's as a software developer, that's one of the things I'd like it to remove. I like solving problems. I enjoy solving problems. I like being creative. But at the end of the day, do I want to sit down and write the code that executes it? Probably not.
It's funny because you might be the exception. This is one of the things that surprised me the most about LLMs and programs, and specifically, is a lot of programmers that I know do not want to use the AI. And I kind of feel it's like they like the experience of programming, the human, it's sort of like being a craftsman. And there's sort of pride behind it as well. Like, I don't want the robot to write the code. I want to be able to micromanage every single line of code. Which, I mean, if an LLM is going to take over the grunt work and I can just be more expressive and code in English, I mean, why not? I welcome that. I sort of see modern programming languages becoming the new assembly language as well. The new programming language is English. Every human being will be a programmer, and the language that then gets compiled to is almost sort of irrelevant. Let the LLM decide. If I'm building a web app, then it's going to be JavaScript. If I'm building, a server, maybe it's going to be Node, etc. But I'm grateful to give away that job to the machines.
So you like the artistry in code?
Yeah, you can just go so much faster. I think one of the things that stops me on a day-to-day basis from exploring the project is the opportunity cost. Like, I'm interested in this side project. Do I really want to spend a weekend? But if I can just speak one paragraph and have a proof of concept up and running in 30 seconds, you get to iterate much faster.
So it becomes I suppose, the ultimate side project assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to go deeper on one thing you said earlier. I asked you if AI could solve one specific task in your daily life, what would it be? And you listed a bunch of discrete tasks.
Right.
Which makes me think about, the distinction between AI and AGI that everybody's excited about / worried about. And how you think about AGI, because everything that you were describing, helping you with your slide deck, helping you cut the grass, personal assistant, these are all like specific verticals that you wouldn't want an AGI for. You wouldn't need one for. You wouldn't need one for. You want a very specifically trained AI that's very good at that specific thing. What's your thinking about AGI? Is it pure fantasy? Is it something that would even be useful?
You know what? I'm not prepared to call anything pure fantasy now. Having seen what we've seen in the last couple of years, I genuinely think pretty much anything is possible. So I would say, I suppose I'm thinking about niche tasks because I'm looking for things that are going to give me my time back. And I'd like those things still to be done well to a good standard. And generally speaking, that's been the experience in my life until now, is you need an expert if you want it done to a certain standard. Right. So the real question is, I guess, can AGI do many, many, many things to an expert standard? And I expect that to happen. Right. So at some point, it probably is some kind of AGI. But I think between now and then, I'd be just happy with a robot lawnmower.
That's funny. My mental model of like the three categories that this stuff all concerns is intelligence, which LLMs now surpass humans, right?
Yeah.
In many categories, agency, which we still have. We still hold the electric cord. We can still turn off the power. And then the final one is taste. Like, these are the three buckets that I see things in. And I think LLMs have won the war on intelligence. They're more intelligent than we are. They can do things faster, better than we can for the most part. Agency, we still hold the cord. And taste, for the time being, I think because the LLMs are so backwards looking, I still think of us using the LLM sort of like an exoskeleton. Kind of like it's giving us 10x power. But we're still the ones doing all the physical work. Do you see things that way as well, or do you have a different model?
I don't know. I think I totally accept what you say about taste right now, but I wonder whether how long before the model's worked out what your taste is, and actually it's delivering things to you that require no decision.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I agree with you for right now. That is the case. We still hold that. Yeah, and it is the case for me now, but I'm not sure about the future. I can see that one getting replaced.
It's so hard to predict what's going to happen next week. I feel like there's no other domain where I've seen such continual progress every week, like literally every week for the past 2 years. And
it seems to be accelerating. I mean, it's even the rate of progress is accelerating itself.
Right. And so, I mean, do you just see information going to zero, meaning like you wouldn't want to be you wouldn't want to be creating these models yourself?
No,
you think
that's a commodity. That's a waste of time. I think there's huge value in private data sets. So having that core specialist expertise in private that no one else can train on, that's worth having. But the models themselves, that's quickly become a commodity.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Dean, for your time. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Should they click and like and subscribe? Anything in particular?
I definitely would love them to click, like, and subscribe because it helps grow the channel, and we'll be doing more stuff like this, so that would be great. But yeah, thank you for your time.